Well, Victorian Ombudsman Deborah Glass has found that Dan Andrews' government has violated the human rights of about 3,000 people after a last-minute decision to place 9 public housing towers into immediate lockdown. Now, in a report tabled in State Parliament today, the Ombudsman recommended that the Andrews government apologise to public housing tower residents and added the decision appeared to be contrary to Victorian law, specifically the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Act. Well, to discuss this and a whole lot more, let's bring in a panel. Sky News host Peter Gleeson joins me from Brisbane and Sky News host Chris Smith joins me from Sydney. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Chris.
Yep.
Do you think an apology should be coming straight down the pipe from the Andrews government?
No, this is going to seem strange to a lot of people. I am no fan of Daniel Andrews, especially the way he mishandled hotel quarantine, his arrogance in not following the National Cabinet guidelines, and his mishandling of extending the lockdown. So I'm no fan. But I can tell you now that if they didn't lock down those, I think it's 7 towers involved in Flemington and also North Melbourne, if that hadn't have happened, it would have been a greater disaster than the disaster of hotel quarantine. You think about it. You give these people 24 hours notice. They then have a choice. Do I want to be locked down in my small boxy apartment in this tower for 2 weeks? No way. They would have taken that virus all around the city of Melbourne and it would have been an absolute unmitigated disaster. I think in this case, the Ombudsman, who I've got to say in her history doesn't have any kind of background in human rights. She's very good at financial investigations and police misbehaviour integrity probes, but not in human rights. I think she's got this wrong, and I hate to say it, I really do, but Daniel Andrews did the right thing, making the decision to lock up those towers.
They'll be putting that in their election adverts, I reckon, Chris. But Peter, do you think that, you know, some people, and the Law Society has said this, some people have tempted in a crisis to view human rights as expendable to the goal of saving human lives. And this sort of thinking does lead to dangerous territory, in my opinion anyway. Do you think the Andrews government will be paying a price for it, or are they going to continue to be celebrated as, you know, the saviour of Victoria?
Well, I think there's 2 elements to this. I think Chris Smith is absolutely right there when he says that, you know, they had to lock this particular block of units down because the alternative was an even worse scenario than the 800 dead that we saw in Victoria. And I'm like Chris, I am the strongest critic of the Andrews government. I think they're a totalitarian regime. I think they're an awful government. But when it comes to civil liberties during a pandemic, they do not exist. They do not exist because the problem is we are dealing with life and death, and we are dealing with a situation where if there's an escalation, this virus is so aggressive, it is so infectious that unless you come in with a strategic plan to shut it down in that particular stage where they did with these particular units, well then the alternative is not even worth thinking about. It could have been 80,000 dead rather than 800 dead in Victoria. So I'm with Chris Smith. Look, you know, I think Andrews is a terrible, terrible premier. I think he's a disgrace in so many respects. But on this instance, the Ombudsman's got it wrong.
All right, well, what about the sticking in Victoria? The doctors and government insiders have raised concerns about what they say is a secretive culture over there. So surprise, surprise. And it relates to Victorians' rebooted hotel quarantine. Because a man there flew in from the US, he then slipped through Melbourne Airport and avoided quarantine entirely. Now, this happened in September, the 24th of September, I think. It's believed to be the 3rd breach since July. And senior officials familiar with the incident claimed that a toxic workplace culture had developed in the scheme at the time, which bred secrecy around decision-making and retribution against staff who rocked the boat. I mean, can it get any worse, or is that better for the Andrews government, Chris Smith?
It's in the DNA of the Andrews government to show the good side of all their bad decisions. Look at what happened on contact tracing. Everyone hammered him at all those press conferences and said, you don't have enough contact tracers. It's getting out of control. No, we're very confident with the model we have. Next question. It was pathetic. You knew it was out of control. The same with hotel quarantine. Everything was drastically delayed. The public weren't told who was in danger of getting, or where we were in danger of being infected by the virus because they've covered it up. It does not surprise me that this has been the conclusion. They are cover-up specialists. They are spin doctors. And I'm telling you, I know there's a lot of support for what has happened down there, but boy, oh boy, don't fall for the spin. They are masters of this, and we shouldn't fall for it.
Well, Peter, I mean, what we've heard in this report is that there's a culture of fear and intimidation, a cover-up, a bullying culture in Victoria. We've long suspected that's been the case, but is this pointing to a much wider issue within the Andrews government?
Absolutely, and we see it today in Queensland, where we saw a report that was brought down where 40% of the Queensland Public Service say that there is a bullying culture within the Queensland bureaucracy. We see it in Victoria. Surprise, surprise. You know, we see this secrecy culture being exposed. But this is the raison d'etre, if you like, of Labor governments in this country. I mean, Andrews, McGowan and, of course, Palaszczuk. What they do is they put plenty of public servants on and then all of a sudden, and they set and forget, and all of a sudden it becomes this real issue. And I think, you know, socialism, which is what Victoria is undertaking right now, or undergoing right now, that's not about the people, it's about the cause. And so, you know, the fact that people are complaining about a secrecy culture, I mean, that would just go straight through the keeper when it comes to Daniel Andrews. He wouldn't give a rat's about that because he's not worried about the people of Victoria, he's more worried about the cause.
Yeah, that's right, and his own re-election, and as long as people are dependent on the government, he'll be happy. But jumping across the pond a little bit, an Alaskan health worker has had a serious allergic reaction after getting the Pfizer biotech vaccine. Now, the reaction was similar to the two cases that were reported last week in Britain, which moved the UK medical regulator to say that anyone with a history of anaphylaxis or severe allergic reactions to medicine or food should not get that particular vaccine. But the US DEA, or Food and Drug Administration, has said that most Americans with allergies should be safe to receive the vaccine. Peter, are you confident in the vaccine regime that's been implemented around the world, or are you happy that Australia's on a bit of a wait-and-see program and we're not going to be first to test it?
That's a very good question, Cory. I am happy that we won't be seeing it till March because we will be able to gauge and establish some of the trends that emerge as far as reactions are concerned. I'll be getting this particular vaccine. I know that there is concern, and there's understandable concern within the community about the possibility of adverse reactions, and that anaphylactic reaction that you just referred to in Alaska and the two in the UK is real, and it's you know, an obvious concern. But I think, you know, the fact that we've actually got a vaccine 12 months, 13 months after this virus first emerged is extraordinary. And I think the fact that, you know, medical science nowadays has been able to deliver something in such a short period of time is nothing short of a miracle. But obviously there will be concerns, and you can understand why people would be upset. But look, I think Australians will embrace the vaccine, as we should.
And Chris, do you have any strong thoughts on the rollout of the vaccine? Is it premature, or are you on board and thinking it's a national health issue and we should all be taking it?
Well, I actually think that this is a really good period for Australia to sit back and watch. And I love the fact that the Poms and the Yanks and the Canadians are the guinea pigs, and Australians can sit back because of our low levels of COVID-19. We can sit back and watch the guinea pigs go through the process. And look, if it is the case that the Pfizer vaccine is not suitable, that those who don't have anaphylactic allergies or reactions to normal processes still become anaphylactic to the Pfizer vaccine, well, we can dump that because we've still got two very successful, according to the trials, very successful vaccines that we can choose from. So this is a great period. I think you've got to understand that what happened in Queensland was probably the way forward for Australia. If there's any doubt whatsoever about the fact that Australians will take up the vaccine to a high degree, we've got to dump it. And maybe this is information from Canada that we will use to dump Pfizer as well. But that's okay. We've still got a choice of two others, and this is the beauty of just waiting, sitting back, getting into the new year, and hopefully by the end of January we can start signing off on this and getting the jab.